All right, today we're diving into something really special, the final chapter of the Quran, Surah Al Nas. Now, it's super short, just 6 verses, but it's packed with what you could call a powerful spiritual toolkit for dealing with the hidden anxieties and negative thoughts that, let's be honest, we all face. So, you know those nagging fears or negative thoughts that just seem to creep into your mind out of nowhere? What's the ultimate defense the Quran gives us against that? Well, the answer is right here, in this final chapter. And it all starts with a surprisingly simple, direct command. The first thing you notice about this chapter is it doesn't open with a story or a long preamble. Nope. It jumps right in with a command, a call to action. It's basically telling us to immediately find shelter. And that instruction, it begins with a single, powerful word. And it all kicks off with that word, say. This isn't just a suggestion. It's a command to speak up, to literally declare your intention. You're actively seeking safety. But okay, the big question is, refuge in whom? To answer that, the chapter lays out not one, but 3 incredibly powerful descriptions of our protector. To really get why this protection is so powerful, you have to understand exactly who you're turning to. The chapter presents this protector with 3 comprehensive titles, and each one builds on the last, creating this complete picture of safety. Okay, so check out how this builds up. It starts with the Lord of mankind, the Rabb, the one who created and sustains everything. Then it gets bigger, the King of mankind, the Malik, the one with absolute ultimate authority. And finally, it culminates with the God of mankind, the Allah, the only being that is truly worthy of our worship. So by saying all 3, you're calling on the sustainer, the ruler, and the ultimate object of your devotion. It's a complete shield. All right, so we've established this incredible, all-encompassing protector. But what are we actually being protected from? Now the chapter pivots and gets super specific about the kind of subtle, sneaky threat we're up against. I mean, come on, you know the feeling, right? That little voice of doubt, that baseless fear, that unwelcome thought that just pops into your head and you're like, where did that come from? Well, according to this text, that's exactly the threat we're talking about. The Quran gives this a name, al-waswas, which means the whisperer. And think about that for a second. It's not a shout, it's not a roar, it's a whisper. It's the subtle, sneaky force that plants these bogus ideas and illusions right into our minds. And yeah, this is identified as the work of Satan. But, and this is the game changer, this whisper has a huge weakness. The surah also calls it al-Nas, which means the one who withdraws, who retreats. It has an off switch, something that makes it run and hide. And that trigger? It's remembering God. So it's like this constant spiritual tug of war, you know? On one side, you've got the whisperer, always trying to sneak in these negative thoughts. But the second you remember your protector, bam, it becomes the withdrawer. It just vanishes. Its power is totally canceled out when you remember who's in charge. There's actually a perfect example of this in action. It's said that when the call to prayer begins, which is, a very loud and public remembrance of God, Satan literally takes off. He flees. But the moment it's over, he's right back, trying to whisper again. It just goes to show how persistent the enemy is, but also how incredibly vulnerable it is to the mention of God. Okay, so you might think this is all just an internal battle, right? Just you against some unseen force. Wrong. The final verse of the chapter drops a huge bombshell. These whispers, they're not just coming from one place. The chapter ends by saying these whispers come from the jinn and from mankind. And that is so, so important. We're asking for protection not just from the unseen enemy, but from the seen one too. So you've got this dual threat. On one hand, there are the unseen whispers from the jinn, like Satan, who's described as running through us like our own blood. That's how close the influence can be. But then you have the whisperers we can actually see and hear, people. A bad friend, a negative influence online, anyone who suggests bad ideas and tries to plant doubt. And get this, the text makes a point that's pretty shocking. Sometimes a human whisperer can be even more dangerous than an unseen devil. And why is that? Well, because we see them. We might trust them. We let our guard down. Their influence is direct, and that makes it incredibly persuasive. That's why the chapter is so clear. We need protection from both sources. Okay, so we know who the protector is. We know what the threat is. Now for the most important part. How do we actually use this shield? Because this chapter isn't just about theory. It's a hands-on, practical tool. See, this chapter isn't just meant to be read and forgotten. It's designed to be an active tool, a spiritual shield you're supposed to pick up and use, especially in those moments when you feel most vulnerable to all those whispers, both internal and external. And we even have a kind of user manual for it from the Prophet Muhammad himself. He had a specific routine. He would recite this chapter and the two before it every single night before sleep, a time when our minds are especially vulnerable. And he'd also recite them after every one of the 5 daily prayers, basically reinforcing that spiritual shield all day long. Look, we live in a world that is just full of noise. It's coming from inside our own heads and from everyone around us. This final chapter of the Quran offers a powerful way to filter that noise and find clarity. So the real question it leaves us with is this: in a world of endless whispers, which ones are you going to empower?